Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us continue with the chapter Control and Coordination. So in the previous session we had studied about the system which is functioning in the human beings for the process of control and coordination. So in this process of control and coordination, basically the different parts of the bodies, they are actually working together in a coordinated manner, in a controlled manner, and this particular function is actually it is maintained by the system known as nervous system in the case of human beings or in the higher animals. Now in this case, this nervous system, it is actually made up of neurons, right? If we are talking about the human beings, then definitely the another function which is working here for the same purpose is hormonal system, or it is also known as endocrine system. So basically this endocrine system is working by secretion by secreting the hormones. But if we have to study about the nervous system, then we must know the functional unit. The functional unit of this nervous system is a neuron, right? And this neuron is actually designed in such a way so that it can receive a message, or it can recognize the stimulus which was received by the sense organ and then transmit it to the next part. That means one cell to the another, and then the many cells are together forming the tissues. So these tissues together, they comprise the system. The system working here for the purpose of control and coordination is a nervous system. This nervous system is comprised of various parts. You know what those parts are? They are brain, spinal cord, and the nerves. These are the major part of the nervous system, and they all are made up of the neurons only. And they are further actually now specialized, or they are functioning in different ways as they have to control each and every function of your body, isn't it? So this has to divide into different types. So these different types are what? Central nervous system, then peripheral nervous system, and autonomic nervous system. The first one, that is central nervous system, is the major part, and we had started with this topic in the previous session. Then next is peripheral, which is actually helping in the communication between the different parts of the body with the brain or the spinal cord. So next one is autonomic and is usually associated with the spinal cord, and it is actually helping in the basic regulation of different type of processes. Now let us just continue with the central nervous system. This central nervous system is actually the major part, as we had already stated, and is the major decision making center of the nervous system. That means the command which is given for a particular action is under the control of central nervous system. So this central nervous system is comprised of two major organs. They are the brain and the spinal cord. So brain, as we had studied in the previous session, that it is a structure which needs lots of protection, isn't it? And this protection is provided by what? Number one, it is enclosed inside a bony cage. What this bony cage is, you must be knowing. That is your skull. Then next is, it is surrounded by three layers. There are three membranes which are surrounding the brain. And what these membranes are known as? They are known as the meninges, or we can even call them as the cranial membrane. So these membrane, they are having some space, and the space is filled with the fluid. This fluid is known as cerebrospinal fluid. Now this particular brain is further divided into different regions or different parts. What those parts are? They are the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. So in the previous session, what we had done is the structure or the function of the forebrain. This forebrain is comprised of main three parts, that is cerebrum, olfactory lobes, and diencephalon. Let us just summarize this forebrain, and then we are going to continue with the next part, that is the midbrain. So forebrain is the major parts here is olfactory lobe and the cerebrum. So this olfactory lobe is the part which is present at the anterior-most side of the brain. You know, forebrain is itself a part of the brain which is present in the front side. This front region, or this the first part, is known as the forebrain. It is just because it is in the front side. Now even here, the most anterior side, that is towards your forehead, a small part is present which is known as the olfactory lobe. Now this olfactory lobe, as the name itself is suggesting, you can just recall the things we had studied earlier. These olfactory lobes, they are associated with the olfactory receptors which are located in the nose. Right? So these receptors, they are recognizing the stimulus, and they are conveying the message to the dendrites which are present in the neurons in the at this location. And then a chemical reaction is taking place, an electrical impulse is generated, which is transmitted to the olfactory lobe. Here the recognition will be interpreted. That means we will find out that what type of aroma it is, what type of odor it is, whether it is a good or bad thing, smelling something odd, or it is having a nice fragrance. Whatever is the interpretation, the recognition, or the final decision would be made by the olfactory lobe, and then accordingly it will be conveying the message to the next target tissue so as to take the action. Like whether you like it, so you will have a different sort of expression. Now what expression you are giving is actually under the control of your forebrain. Now the next part of forebrain is a cerebrum. Cerebrum is divided into 4 regions: frontal, parietal, occipital and temporal. So these particular parts, they are having the specialized functions. What this region is having a function? So this frontal is having the this function, that is first thing is that it is located in the front parts. It is the frontmost part of the forebrain behind the olfactory lobe, and it is actually associated with various muscular activities. That means it helps in controlling or coordinating the muscular functions of your body. Then comes the parietal region. This parietal is situated just behind the frontal lobe. So this parietal is associated with a function of, we can say, it is receiving the information from different sense organs, and then is establishing a consciousness. So this is it is associated with a conscious association. Then comes the occipital. So below this parietal, the next part is there, which is occipital, and is very small region. This is our vision. It is a visual reception. It is receiving the messages from the photoreceptors. That means from your eyes. And therefore these are interpreting the messages and then conveying the message to the next part of the brain. The command is not actually under the control of the occipital region. It is just receiving it out and is then conveying the things to the next part for its interpretation and for the further action that is supposed to be taken by an individual. The next part is the temporal, which is in the front side or below the with this frontal part, and it is linked with, or it is associated with, the auditory functions. That means auditory, as the name is suggesting again, it is associated with the phonoreceptors. What these phonoreceptors are? They are those receptors which are receiving the sound waves. So these are located where? Of course, now it is a common sense, and that is your, of course, ears, right? So therefore these are linked with the auditory functions, and of course receiving and interpretation and then giving a command is under the control of a temporal region. We can see now the next part. We are going to continue here. Let us begin with the midbrain. This midbrain is situated in between the forebrain and the hindbrain. So, if we say that this midbrain is located between the forebrain and the hindbrain, what impression do you get? It is in a row, it is in a sphere, that is centrally it is located, or what impression, how is it located? Just remind that we had shown a diagram. Let us just have a recall. Let us show you the diagram here. See, this is the diagram in which the location is clearly shown. This is a actually side view of your brain, in which the front part is the forebrain. This outer hemisphere which is shown here is a forebrain, or it is known as a cerebellum, and is having the different regions. This front part is here is the location for the olfactory lobe, and then the different regions are actually distributed. So this this is the frontal part here. Then at the bottom side there is a temporal region. Then here this is the parietal, and this small section is the occipital. Now if it is it is present over there, then behind at the bottom side, at the posterior side, there is the hindbrain. Now in between, as we said, there is the location for the midbrain. So you can clearly observe it here. This upper part is the forebrain, the bottom part is the hindbrain, and in the center there is the midbrain. So this midbrain is therefore we are saying it is centrally located, or is located in the in between the hindbrain and the forebrain. This part, that is the midbrain, it is actually having a very important function. It is basically it is comprised of certain nerves. There are some small nerves which are present here, and these nerves are helping in establishing a connection between the forebrain and the hindbrain. They are connecting, therefore they are so important. Therefore this entire coordination and this entire combined activity is actually possible. How they are working together? It is because they this particular midbrain is helping in conveying or transmitting the messages which are received by the forebrain to the hindbrain, and further so as to take the function accordingly. So this midbrain, therefore we can say it is comprised of what? The forebrain and the certain nerves which are helping in connecting the forebrain and the hindbrain. Now although these are getting interlinked and are of course, if such sort of bridge is established, then they should have a very important role in this particular system. Besides this, its own role is there in the brain or in the nervous system. What this particular function is? It helps in controlling the reflex movements. You know what is reflex movement or the reflex action? Reflex action is a particular action which is taken spontaneously and automatically. Like something happens to us, like a pin pricks in your hand, or let us say if some dust or some particle goes into your eyes, what happens? Immediately you pull your hand back due to the pricking, right? Or you close your eyes, it starts the tear comes out, isn't it? So all these sort of functions, they are known as the reflex action. Now the reflex action which is actually associated with your head part or the neck part or in the trunk part, in response to visual and auditory stimulus, they are controlled by the midbrain. See, reflex actions, we are saying they are the spontaneous or the automatic actions, isn't it? But all actions are not, they are taking place automatically, and they do not need any sort of thinking. For example, if I say I am a boy or I am a girl, so you heard this thing, right? And you know it. There is no need for any thinking about it, isn't it? Similarly, let us say if you are studying since long, isn't it? Since your junior KGs and all that life, student life you had led till now, isn't it? Now many things you have learned so well that you know it, that of course if you listen that particular thing, immediately you know that what it is. So you know what action should be taken if a certain thing is told to you. So such type of auditory stimulus like phonoreceptors, they are receiving those particular things, and you know the action what is to be taken. So immediately you take that particular action. Similarly, the visual, what you see, many things you know, they are very simple. You know that there is no need to think about it. So such type of responses which are given to the visual or auditory sort of a stimulus, they are actually controlled by the reflex movement. Now reflex movement, as we said, it is automatic and spontaneous, but still there must be some thinking required in some of the particular actions. Like if a needle is pricked, the action is of course what? Immediately you are going to pull your hand back or your leg back wherever the pricking has taken place. But imagine the one example we had already started in the previous session. When you are driving and something goes into your eyes, you will not close your eyes for a long time. You know how much you have to dilate, how much you have to contract. You have to control at that time, isn't it? Or if you don't, that type of this thing may lead to certain accident, and you are aware. So you need to take a proper action at that time. So such type of control is actually under the control of the midbrain. Let us say, for example, if you are holding something very hot in your hand, and you know the temperature is so high you cannot tolerate, then what happens? You will leave it, isn't it? But now imagine the case. If there is some small kid just near to you, suppose your mom is there and you are nearby and she is holding something very hot. So is she going to throw the thing on you? No. She is going to manage. She will control that thing, isn't it? She has to respond to that particular thing in a very different way, so that it is not going to spill down, or it is not going to affect any child nearby. So such type of actions, if it has to be controlled, that is under the control of the this midbrain. But mind it, the midbrain is controlling the actions related to the visual and auditory stimulus. So although we had given you the one example of this burning, but this is what? This is associated with the skin, with the touch, isn't it? With the thermoreceptors. So just imagine that the visual, the movement of your neck, of your trunk and your head is under the control of the midbrain. So the clarification is very important, as the different parts are controlled by different parts of the brain. Well, the next part of next part of the brain is now hindbrain. This hindbrain is located at the posterior side of the brain, as we had seen in the diagram also. Right. Now this hindbrain is further having three different parts. What these parts are? They are pons, cerebellum and medulla oblongata. So we can see this in the diagram also, as this is the entire brain, which is showing the different lobes of the forebrain. The midbrain is not shown as it is inside. It is located in the inner side of the brain. Fine. Now we are studying about what? The hindbrain. So this hindbrain is having what parts? They are the pons, medulla oblongata and cerebellum. So cerebellum is present towards the posterior side. In front of it there is a slight lobular structure. So this lobe is here known as pons, and below that there is the presence of the medulla oblongata. And each part is having its own important function. What those important functions are? Let us find it out. So the very first part of this hindbrain is what? It is pons. Now pons is completely involved in the regulation of respiration. What do we mean by this respiration? You know very well, we had done the entire process, isn't it? It is actually it is having this breathing part and the oxidation part. So breathing, in which the air has to be inhaled and exhaled at a proper rate. So this breathing rate, that how much time gap you have to inhale, then how much time, after how much time you have to exhale these airs, all this is regulated by the pons. If it is going beyond the limit, then together the another system will be working for it, but the normal regulation of it is under the control of the pons region. Not only this much, the glucose has to be oxidized, and for that the enzymes has to be secreted, right? Those enzymes, they have to function properly, so the regulation of those functioning should be there. So entire process of respiration is actually regulated by the pons. The next part is cerebellum. This cerebellum is having important functions of control of voluntary actions, as well as it coordinates various smooth body movements. Now what do we mean by this? Basically, if we are coordinating the smooth body movement, then of course it is a kind of voluntary actions. We can combine these two functions together and can understand the things very easily. Let us say the voluntary actions. It helps in maintaining your posture and the balance of the body. What does it mean? You know very well, whenever there is let us say national anthem is sung, so what you have to do? You have to stand straight in a attention position, right? So how you have to maintain this posture? You know it, and you should stand straight. So this posture is maintained by the cerebellum. Suppose we can say like if you're sitting in a classroom, then what should be your posture? Lying down on the table with a head down, or the way you want, putting one leg on your chair or your benches. Is this the way to sit in the class? No. You should sit properly and you should respond properly, isn't it? So the posture that should be maintained, that balance that should be maintained for a longer time, is under the control of a cerebellum. See, you can sit in a position you want. That is a voluntary action. But how to sit, that is a etiquette. So you must, of course you all know the things, but how you are able to maintain, that is under the control of the cerebellum. So this is the one of the example. Now let us say, if suppose you are walking somewhere, then we are not falling down. Your hands are moving accordingly. Even when you are talking to someone, you are able to balance yourself, isn't it? So this particular thing is of course under the control of the cerebellum. While dancing, we need to take various positions. Some are so risky also, and they are so delicate dance. Means dancing, you know how much position has to be changed and how much balancing you need in that particular thing, right? So this dancing, to maintain the posture of the body, to maintain the balance so that you do not fall down, is actually under the control of cerebellum. Then we can say like riding a bicycle, or over some like we can say while driving, you need to maintain the balance. If you lose your balance, how you are going to balance the vehicle, isn't it? So all these postures or the movement of your body, or these maintenance according to your situation, is under the control of cerebellum, with of course a great awareness. So this is for the major function of the cerebellum. Then the next part is medulla oblongata. Now medulla oblongata is controlling the involuntary actions of the body. As we say, the voluntary actions, they are the function of the cerebellum. They are the regulation is maintained by the cerebellum. But the medulla oblongata, on the other hand, it is controlling the involuntary actions of the body. Now these involuntary actions, what does it include? For example, heartbeat. The heartbeat, what is the normal heartbeat of a human being? It is 72 beats per minute, right? Similarly, if you just compare it with a newborn baby, so it is so high. The fetus, the heartbeat, it's very high over there. So how much heartbeat is required and how it has to be maintained? That is the function of the medulla oblongata. Then the breathing, the entire process or the regulation is under the control of pons. So, it is also controlled by the medulla oblongata. As it is going high or low, then it is brought down, isn't it? The message has to be conveyed. It has to further interlink with the another process. So all this is together, they are interlinked and then they are functioning accordingly. The blood pressure, of course there is a specific blood pressure, isn't it? You know it very well. We had studied about it. That is 80 mm by 120 mm of Hg in an adult person. So this has to be maintained. How is it regulated? This is not like it is your wish. So we are tired, we want the blood not to be flown in body. No, that constant rate should be there, right? So as to supply the various material, so as to we can say provide energy and so on, the various functions as we had already studied. So similarly the salivation. Salivation means secretion of saliva in your mouth, in the buccal cavity. You know, when you even imagine the thing sometimes, you can see the watering of your mouth. Dogs are trained for the saliva secretion. Like there are certain experiments also. Ringing a bell, you will get the food in case of dogs. So saliva starts secreting. Then even when you don't provide food and you ring a bell, that organism is having this impression and the salivation will start. So this salivation is under the control of medulla oblongata. We are of course different from dogs. We are not comparing, but of course brain is there and we are normally studying the function of the brain. In the case of human beings, if you look at your favorite dish, even like if you are hungry, saliva secretion is a normal thing, and that is not in your hand actually. It is under the control of medulla oblongata. Swallowing, the food you are swallowing inside, once it crosses your pharynx, it goes into your pharynx, you cannot omit it out. You cannot is not in your hand that if it has gone into esophagus and then you can remove it out. No, it is having a proper direction, it is flowing in a particular direction, and that is under the control of the medulla oblongata. Coughing, once you start coughing, is it in your hand to stop it? Even when you try, many a times it happens that it is going to take place. Sneezing, if it goes into if something enters into your nose, or you are suffering from some viral or something, sneezing is a common action. You cannot stop it. If you are going to sneeze, like even if you have to stop it, then what you are doing? Is it automatically happening? No, you have to close these nostrils and whatever action you are taking to avoid it. But if it is happening, it is actually an involuntary action. It is not you are inviting something so that you can sneeze out, isn't it? So it is an involuntary action. Vomiting, the another example given here. Vomiting, if you are feel like vomit, then nothing can stop it. And even if it is better to vomit it out, and simply we can say it is an involuntary action, it is nothing, it is not in your hand. So such type of involuntary actions which are not actually not in your hand, they are under the control of the medulla oblongata. So after this discussion, you must be aware of the different functions of the hindbrain. So with this hindbrain, the overall brain structure and the functions of different part is over. Then next part of the central nervous system is what? It is spinal cord. So now let us continue, and we find out that how the spinal cord is designed and how it is functioning in the body. Further, this spinal cord is actually a cylindrical structure and is also known as a nerve cord. You must have heard about this particular word, isn't it? So it is known as the nerve cord. this nerve cord, see, the cord means a string. So it is a long cylindrical string-like structure which is present at the back side of your body. Now at the back side, if it is located, it is also known as the dorsal nerve cord. This dorsal nerve cord, or it's a very long thick nerve in the body, and it is starting, or it extends from the medulla oblongata. It arises from the medulla oblongata. You're seen in the diagram, it is labeled as the brain stem, isn't it? So that bottom region, the medulla oblongata, it further further forms a root-like structure, and that root further extends downward and forming the spinal cord. So this is where it is located. Now this structure, it is enclosed in a bony cage or a case. This bony structure is known as what? The vertebral column. So you know what this vertebral column is? In the vertebrates, it is well developed. If you remember this classification slightly, you must be aware that this vertebral column is a bony structure which is present at the back side of these higher animals, isn't it? And this structure is actually enclosing this particular nerve cord. And why it is enclosed inside? That means, what is the reason behind it? Why it is enclosed? The reason is so as to provide the protection. A spinal cord is involved in the control and coordination of most of the body processes, and if it is damaged at any particular point, even slightly, it may result in something very serious. The damage could be very bad. So it also need protection like the brain is needing. So brain, how the protection was provided? It was by the that bony cage known as the skull. Similarly, in the spinal cord, this cage is known as the vertebral column. Now this vertebral column is enclosing it, and inside it is surrounded by the membranes. These membranes, they are known as what? They are known as the meninges. So these meninges, or the membranes, they are actually providing further protection to the spinal cord. Further, this spinal cord, it is not only protected by the meninges. Just like the brain, the fluid is filled inside the space in between the meninges or the membranes. What that particular thing known as, or the fluid known as? It is known as cerebrospinal fluid. You remember CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, and is of course very important. So this is also sometimes called as CSF. So this CSF is further providing the further protection. Now these structures, that is the spinal cord, they are associated with the special nerves. Which nerves? Sensory nerves and the motor nerves. So these sensory and motor nerves, you know what these means actually? We had studied about the sensory and the motor neurons, and those neurons which are further having this role and forming the nerves, they would be known as the sensory and the motor nerves. What is it? Sensory is the one which is associated with the sense organs, which can sense a particular thing, which can recognize the message, and then it is conveyed to the spinal cord. Then from spinal cord, the order has to be given, command is to be generated, right? Then the action is to be taken. So this type of function is further transmitted by the motor nerves. So these particular structures, each section of the spinal cord is actually associated with a sensory and a motor nerve. Sensory, which can receive the message, then it can be interpreted inside, and then the motor is going to transmit the message further. Now they are connected with what? Now you can see they are connected with the visceral as well as the somatic parts of our body. What does it mean? It means the visceral means the internal, those which are located in the internal viscera of the body or the internal cavity, like stomach, like heart. So all those inner part of the or inner organs are known as the visceral organs. Then somatic, which are forming the structure, like the superficial and those different parts of the body, they are known as the somatic organs or the parts. So now you can see that they are linked with all these parts, and they are having the combined nerves which is receiving the message and then transmitting for the further action also. So therefore we can say it is a wholesome function which is maintained by the spinal cord, and thus they are helping in maintaining the control and coordination processes in the higher organisms. Well, these nerves, they are present in the pairs. You can see this diagram. It is showing a structure of a vertebral column, and inside the vertebral column there is the location for the spinal cord. Now this spinal cord, as we said, is associated with the sensory and the motor nerve. So these are actually present in pairs. That means a pair of nerve arise from the left and right side of the spinal cord, and thus it is actually connecting the entire body region. Now in this part we can say it is extending from the head part at the root of this head, and then it is extending up to the bottom side till the near the anal region, we can say, or the posterior side, right? Now along this particular length, it is crossing through the different regions of the body, and thus it is giving rise to different type of nerves. They are giving out 31 pairs, and these are arising from different regions, and thus according to the location from they are arising, they are known as cervical nerves, thoracic nerves, lumbar nerves, and the sacral nerves. So what this part is, the first part that is associated with the head part is the cervical region, then thoracic is the one which is linked with the chest region, lumbar is the upper abdominal, and sacral is the bottom part. So this is how the distribution or the different types of nerves are arising, and they are controlling the different parts of the body. Now they are actually involved in the different processes or the different sort of control, and what type of control, that will be we will be studying in the further session. So it is this much for now. Further we are going to continue. So thank you so much. We'll meet you soon in the next session.